And here we go again. We're back here in the sports wagering zone. It's Wednesday afternoon, hump day as we call it here at the zone. Welcome to the show. We're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on most of your biggest podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast or Spotify or Amazon Music or even Google Podcast as well. So thank you very much for listening. We're also coming to you on Blackjack Television on the East Coast. And of course, we're here in Denver, Colorado on Mile High Radio.com. That's the story. That's where we are. Whatever time zone you're in, whatever you're doing, welcome to the show. A lot to talk about today. Mr. Rogers showed up at camp, and as usual, we talked about it yesterday when it first reports started coming out. Get ready for the movement. The sports books, they don't waste any time looking and going into different situations. They are definitely moving around. And of course, they don't want to get caught in the wrong direction because, they're not in the market for losing money. They're in the market to make money. So they're going to adjust various numbers to make sure that everything kind of fits into their way of thinking. So to start off with, let's go back and let's see what's happening now because the numbers have been changing. Like I said, the big soap opera with Aaron Rodgers, is he coming? Is he going? It finally came to an end yesterday. No, no, he's not going to retire. He's not going to hold out. He's not going to request a trade. He's not going to quit football and go host Jeopardy. He's going to stay right where he is and where he was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Rodgers reported to training camp on Tuesday. He's going to suit up for the Packers for a record 17th season, a record 17 seasons with the same team. It capped off that whirlwind offseason extravaganza that was going on, including the last few days were really chaotic because the sports books will have scrambling to adjust their odds because they're hearing rumors, they're getting speculation. It kind of gives you an idea to show you that when people they seem to think that the sports books, they're into it with some people that give them information up ahead of time. Well, this is a good indication to show you that they know just as much about what's going to be going on to a certain degree, maybe a little more than you and I do, but they're also treading on really, really eggs that could crack at any moment. So on Friday, we saw Circus Sports drop the Packers win total from 11 to 8.5. And that was because the news that Rodgers may be retiring. We talked about it on Friday. We thought that that was going to be the big thing that's going to happen, and that was the direction he was going in. And the reason they were saying was because that's what Vegas was saying, so they must know what they're doing. But as we now found out, they really don't know. There was a real frenzied run on the Vikings futures to win the NFC North. Also, we talked about that. But of all that kind of came to an end yesterday. Rodgers is going back to the Packers. And of course, as soon as that official news came out, Green Bay moved from being a plus 1,600 on the money line to a plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl at BetMGM. The Packers also moved from being a plus 800 down to being a plus 550 to win the NFC conference. And after reaching as high as plus 195 to win the division, Green Bay is now on the minus side at minus 165 as a favorite to win the conference as well. Rodgers' MVP odds remained unchanged at plus 800. Now, we also saw a massive shift in that first game against the Saints. New Orleans had moved to a 3-point home favorite for the season opener, but now the line has completely shifted to the Packers as being a 3-point favorite in that first game of the season. Now, anyone who jumped on the Packers at plus 3 yesterday before most of the books were able to adjust. You got to be feeling pretty good today because you got yourself a pretty good deal in that particular situation. Okay. But now it's Wednesday, and we're going to talk about baseball as well because that's on tap for today. We have three games that we're going to be talking about as far as line movement is concerned and in which direction the pros are going. We're going to look at Houston against Seattle, Washington against Philadelphia, and the Yankees against the Tampa Rays. Those are the games we're going to look at a close look, kind of give you an idea as to which way it's going and in which direction the pros are going as well. But in the meantime, let's take a quick look at what happened yesterday in baseball because the favorites went 8-6 with the biggest upsets by the Tigers, plus 169 against the Twins. The Reds were a plus 150 against the Cubs, and the Yankees a plus 124 against the Rays. The favorites still lead on the season, however. They're at 58%. The overs went 8-5-1 yesterday, and it increased their lead to 50.3%. So that's the roundup of what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned. And now we're going to take our first break. And if you've listened to the show before, you know we do take 3 breaks within the show. Each one is of about a 1-minute duration. We try to keep it down. It gives us a chance to take a little sip of water, kind of get our thoughts back together again, and get back into business. And when we do come back, we're going to take a look at these 3 games: Houston against Seattle, Washington against Philadelphia, the Yankees against Tampa. Let you know the line movement on those 3 games, as well as in which direction the pros are going as well. We're also going to be taking a look at the winning and losing streaks because things kind of changed yesterday. So we're going to talk about that and talk about the swagger theory as far as winning and losing streaks is concerned, because now with these 2 teams, we're into that category. So let's get that first break out of the way, and we'll be back into the sports wagering zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Denver, Colorado on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on mostly major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts, just to name a few. We're on most of those major podcasts. And of course, if you want to get a hold of us, it's not very hard. Just send an email and send it to the sports wagering zone at gmail.com. That's the sports wagering zone at gmail.com. So let's talk some baseball now that we got the Rogers situation kind of out of the way. The sports books are scrambling to make sure that they get the right numbers in place. And like I said, if you got in yesterday while that New Orleans Saints game was a 3-point favorite as far as the Saints were concerned, if you got in on that and you took the Packers, you're in pretty good shape this morning, because now you're in very good shape. Anyway, let's take a look at the games on tap for today. The Houston Astros, Seattle Mariners, 3:30 p.m. this afternoon Eastern Time. The Astros are 62-40. The Mariners are 55-47. Now, this is the rubber game of that 3-game series that's been going on. The Mariners took the opener 11-8. In that game, they were 155 on the plus side as home dogs, and the Astros came back to win 8-6 last night. The Astros were a minus 165 as road favorites. Now, in this late afternoon game, Houston hands the ball over to their veteran right-hander, Jake Odorizzi. He's 3-5 with a 4.23 ERA. Seattle comes back with their left-hander, Yusei Kikuchi. He's 6-5 with a 3.95 ERA. Now, as we look at the line on this game, it opened with the Astros. They were a minus 130 road favorite on the money line, and the Mariners were a plus 120 home dog. But the public, they're backing the road favorite in this game because, first of all, they do have a better record, yet we've seen Houston come down from being a minus 130 to a minus 120. What this means is that the pro money is on a reverse line movement on the Mariners at plus 120, dropping them down to plus 110. Now, Seattle also has value in this game from an analytical standpoint. They're a home dog, okay, and home dogs are a little over 46% so far this season. And if you just played home dogs this season, you'd be up 26 units as far as betting was concerned. Now, Seattle is also a divisional dog with a high total. Now, a historically profitable spot when you have a divisional dog with a high total. So the pros seem to be leaning on a high-scoring game, as the total for this game is 8.5. Not only that, but they've also juiced up the over to minus 115, which means it could go even higher. The over is 2-0 so far this series. Seattle is 44-35 as a dog of the season and 33-21 at home. So as far as the pros are concerned, in the game between the Houston Astros and the Seattle Mariners, the pros are on the Seattle Mariners. At 7 o'clock tonight, Eastern time, of course, Washington Nationals in Philadelphia to play the Phillies again. The Nationals were 46-54. The Phillies were 50-50. They're right at 500. Now, these are two National League East teams. They split the first two games of this series. The Phillies got the first game 6-5. In that game, they were minus 125 home favorites on the money line. And the Nats came back yesterday with a 6-4 win as plus 115 road dogs. So in tonight's final game, Washington comes in with their left-hander, Patrick Corbin. He's 6-9 with a 5.71 ERA. And Philadelphia comes back with their ace, Zach Wheeler. He's 8-5 with a 2.37 ERA. So now that we look at the line, it opened with the Phillies, a minus 175 home favorite, pretty well up there, and the Nationals as a plus 160 road dog. Now, the pros see this big starting pitching advantage for the home team, the Phillies, and they're not really scared by that big number that it started at. The pros have steamed the Phillies up. It's now at minus 200, up from the minus 175 number I talked about earlier. Now, keep this in mind. Home favorites have gone 61% so far this season, winning roughly 13 units overall. Philadelphia is 30-20 at home this season. Washington, they're just 19-29 on the road. Now, the Nationals could be missing their star shortstop, Trey Turner, because he left last night's game because COVID protocols came into play. There also appears to be some over liability in this game. The total is 8, with the over being juiced up to minus 115. So in this game between the Nationals and the Phillies, the pros are on the home team with the better pitcher, the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, we're going to take our second break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the 7 o'clock game, the New York Yankees against the Tampa Rays. Kind of let's give you an idea as to any line movement in that game, as well as letting you know in which direction the pros may be going as well. So that's the story there. And when we come back, we'll be talking about that game. We'll bring you up to date as to how well this little method or system, whatever you want to call it, is doing so far, how it did yesterday. And we're also going into looking into the winning and losing streaks, the swagger theory. We'll explain that to you, give you an idea as to the two games that are affected by that today. This way it gives you something else that you might want to bet on as well. So let's get that second break out of the way. We'll be back into the sports wagering zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Welcome back. You're in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Also on milehighradio.com as well. So thank you very much for listening. Glad to have you on board. We're talking baseball today. Of course, the big story for today, just want to repeat it in case you tuned in late or you just got up, you haven't heard the latest news. Mr. Rogers will definitely be playing with the Green Bay Packers, and that had quite an effect, like a kind of earthquake effect, as you want to call it, throughout the sports books. Them trying to make their arrangements, making their changes to make sure they don't get caught with their pants down. Because, like I said, they're in the business to make money. They're not there to lose money. That's for darn sure. And they will do everything possible to try to stay ahead. So that's the story. Rodgers is back. The numbers are changing, where the Vikings were the sort of the pick to win the North as far as the NFL is concerned. No longer that's the case. Green Bay is now the pick to win the North, to pick the conference. Everything else is going towards them. So everything seems to be coming back to normal to a certain degree up there in Green Bay. Anyway, let's get back to baseball because that's what we're involved with right now. We talked about two games earlier today. The 3:40 p.m. time for the Astros and the Mariners. In that particular game, the pros are on the Seattle Mariners in that game. And of course, Washington Nationals against the Phillies. In that game, the pros are on the Phillies. One more game on tap for tonight to take a look at. That's the New York Yankees. They're 52 and 47 down in Tampa to play the Rays, who are 60 and 41. Now, the Yankees came up big yesterday for the pros. They stole the series opener 4-3 as a plus 125 road dog. That hasn't happened that often this season. Now, in tonight's rematch, the Yankees come out with Nestor Cortez. He's has no record at all. He has a 1.95 ERA. And Tampa Bay comes back with their right-hander, Michael Wacha. He's 2-2 with a 5.16 ERA. Now, as we look at the line on this game, it opened with the Rays, a minus 140 home favorite. the Yankees a plus 130 road dog. Now, the public is all over the Rays. They kind of feel that the Rays are going to bounce back. They're at home. They're in the run. But the wise guys, they're riding with the Yankees once again. And we've seen them on the Yankees many, many times so far this season, many times at a loss, by the way. Again, there's a plus money payout involved here. So what happened was by putting all this money into the Yankees and the steam came down from being a plus 130 to a plus 115 on the money line. Now, New York also has value in this game because they're a road divisional dog. They're a contrarian dog coming off of a win, okay, and a dog with a sharp reverse line movement totally in their favor. So all those things coming put together, as far as the analytics are concerned, the pros like the New York Yankees in this game. Also, teams that are receiving a 15 cents or more steam, and we've talked about this before, coming off of a win are almost at 59% so far this season. So there's more things going on. In the meantime, New York is getting healthier. They're returning Aaron Judge, and Gio Urshela is coming back into the lineup again tonight. So it's starting to look like perhaps the Yankees may be back on a roll once again. So in this particular game, the pros are on the New York Yankees, which is the underdog. And like I said, although they haven't done that well this season, it's not that often where they really have been the dog, because the Yankees are the Yankees. They're still the Yankees. There's no doubt about it. Same thing holds true for the Dodgers. The Dodgers, they get all the hype, they get all the news, and of course, what happens is the average general public bettor kind of buys into that hype, and they generally bet for those two teams as well. So just a quick recap once again this afternoon. They like the Seattle Mariners over the Houston Astros, the Philadelphia Phillies over the Washington Nationals, and of course the New York Yankees over the Rays for today. Those are the three games on tap for tonight. Now, to give you a rundown as to how well or how bad this system or method, whatever you want to refer to it as. And for you new listeners, all we're doing is following a line movement. And if there's line movement in a certain direction, that's the direction that the pros are going. So all we're doing is letting you know which direction that's happening. Whether you want to bet on the situation or not, totally up to you. So we've been following it all season long. As of April 1st, when the season first started, we're up around 53%, 54% at times. And as far as the month of July is concerned, we're at almost 51%. Well, yesterday we had three plays. We had Washington against Philadelphia. The pros had Philadelphia, and of course, that was a loser. The White Sox against Kansas City, they were on the White Sox, and that was a winner. Oakland against the Padres, they were on Oakland, and that was a winner as well. So we had three plays yesterday, two wins, one loss. The day before that, we had two plays, and both were losses. And the day before that, we had two wins and one loss with three plays as well. And like I said, for the entire month of July, we had 53 plays so far, 27 winners. That comes out to 50.9. You could say almost 51%. So that's the story there. Now, in the meantime, we've also been talking about the winning and losing streaks. We talked about it. And of course, what we always try to tell you is that if you're going to be playing winning or losing streaks, you have to determine by yourself as to what you consider a losing or a winning streak to be. Here at the Zone, we look at 6. If a team loses or wins 6 games in a row, we consider that a streak. So whether that's the right number or not is really unimportant. It's the number that we're using. And of course, any data that evolves out of the system is predicated on the fact that number 6 is the number as far as being a winning or losing streak. So we've been following a couple of teams. And of course, yesterday we had two games that kind of fit into the category. We had Texas playing Arizona, where Texas was on a 12-game losing streak. And we had Kansas City against the Chicago White Sox, where Kansas City was on a 6-game winning streak. So what happened is this. Texas finally won the game. So now their 12-game losing streak has ended. And of course, the White Sox beat Kansas City, and Kansas City now is not in their winning streak any longer as well. So there's another situation that evolves once that occurs, and it's called the swagger theory. And it's called swagger because what we're looking at is a team that has lost, has been a 12-game losing streak, has finally won a game. And historically and generally, what's been happened is that that team usually comes back because they got the swagger now. That's, hey, we finally won. We're going to try to win another one now, too, as well. So historically, the second game also comes back as a winner for the team that's in the swagger situation. As far as Kansas City's concerned, the swagger goes the other way because they had a 6-game winning streak and now they lost. And generally, what happens is they kind of get down a little bit, maybe decide to, you know, they're not having a good season so far, or whatever's going on, and they tend to go and lose their second game as well. So if you're looking at something else to bet on for today, as far as the stagger series, staggered teams are concerned, and the wagger, okay, here's what you have to do. Texas and Kansas City would be your plays. Playing Texas to win and Kansas City to lose. That's the swagger theory, and that's how I explain it to you. If you understand it, it's up to you. Whatever you want to do. Again, as always, we leave all the decisions up to you. We just present to you the various possibilities, and then you kind of take it from there. So let's get our third break out of the way, and when we come back, once again, we're going to recap what happened today. We'll talk about the Rodgers situation, kind of go over those numbers once again, and also talk about the 3 teams on tap for tonight as far as which direction the pros are going in those particular situations. So let's take our final break. And like I said, we will be back into the sports wagering zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone, and here we go again. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live from the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms. Just to go over the situation with Mr. Rodgers coming back to Green Bay, that's where he's going to be. He's not going to be doing Jeopardy. He's not going to retire. He's not going to quit. He's going to stay in Green Bay for his 17th consecutive season. So let's take a look at what's happened once again with those odds. Green Bay moved from being a 1,600 plus 1,600 to a plus 1,200 on the money line to win the Super Bowl. And this is at Bet MGM. It might be a little different at wherever you are, whatever situation you're dealing with. The Packers also moved from being a plus 800 down to a plus 550 to win the NFC conference. And after going as high as plus 195, to win the division. Green Bay is now back down to being a minus 165 favorite. So there's a big change right there. They were as high as 195 to win the division. They're now back down to a minus 165 as the favorite to win the division. And of course, the MVP odds on Rodgers haven't changed. We've also seen a big change in that first game of the season. The Saints. New Orleans moved from being a 3-point home favorite, but now the line has completely shifted, gone the other way. The Packers are now a 3-point favorite. So, like we said before, if you got on the Packers at +3 yesterday before they made that adjustment, you got to be feeling pretty good to yourself right now. So that's the story there. I hope you made that move and everything worked out for you. If you didn't, there'll be other things coming on down the pike just as well. We're just about a little over a week away from the Hall of Fame Bowl game. And then, of course, before you know it, we'll be into September and into the beginning of the NFL season. So, once again, to recap the 3 games on tap for today, as far as the pros are concerned, and as far as which direction the pros are going and which way the line movement is going, let's take a look at those 3 games on tap for today. First of all, it is Houston against Seattle. In that particular game, the pros are on Seattle. Washington against Philadelphia. In that game, the pros are on the home favorite, Philadelphia Phillies. And finally, the New York Yankees as an underdog against Tampa Bay. The pros and the analytics are on the New York Yankees as well. And if you're looking for the situation as far as winning and losing streaks is concerned, the swagger theory comes into play for the 2 games from yesterday. Texas was on a 12-game losing streak. They finally beat Arizona. Kansas City was on a 6-game winning streak. They lost to the White Sox. So what happens is we call the swagger theory comes into play. So the play would be Texas to win, Kansas City to lose, because generally we've seen historically what happens is that when a team comes off of a win and they lose, then they usually lose the next game. If they're coming off of a loss and they win, they usually win the next game. So that's just something you want to take a look at. We've been following it for a while. It works most of the time. Now, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But here you got 2 situations, one coming off a win, one coming off a loss. So that's the story as far as that's concerned. So that's the story. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. The day is now done as far as the sports wagering zone is done. I want to thank you very much for listening. And of course, we hope you have a very pleasant Wednesday. And of course, if you're betting, I certainly hope you have a profitable day as well. Once again, the 3 games on tap in baseball: Houston against Seattle. The pros are on Seattle. Washington against Philadelphia. We're on Philadelphia. Yankees against Tampa. We're on the underdog Yankees in that game. And with the swagger theory, playing Texas to win today, Kansas City to lose. So that's a roundup of everything for today. Mr. Rogers is back. The numbers are starting to fluctuate around. Keep an eye on those. Try to do the best you can. Anyway, that's the story. So, like I said, I hope you have a great Wednesday. Have a good Wednesday. And of course, if you're betting, I most certainly hope you have a great Wednesday as well. So that's the story. Profitable Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. We'll be back again tomorrow as we're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. So until tomorrow, I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye, everybody.